Right. Hi, YouTube. I'm going to talk a little bit today about a program I've come up with in order to create subplots to always seed into my stories that take 2 lines on a piece of paper. So 2 lines that give me everything I need to know to seed subplots, and then depending on what the players pick up, I then can progress the working of it a little later on after the session. So first, before I talk about that, we got to talk about the 7 kinds of stories that I'm going to work with. Right, so there are 7 kinds of stories that often end up getting told. And so I use these as the sort of skeleton for these subplots that then give me a sort of creative place to take them. So I know where I'm starting, where they might go, and then what sort of pivots I might build into them. So let me just show you what I mean. 7 kinds of stories. I'll briefly go through each of them. So overcome the monster, pretty straightforward kind of storyline, right? You're finding some sort of big, bad, awful thing to hunt or kill or send away or pacify or turn into a friend, one way or the other to get rid of. Okay, pretty straightforward stuff. Go kill the dragon. Got it. Go take the kobolds out of the cave. Got it. Okay, fine. Rags to Riches is the kind of storyline where you're trying to take a character who has lost something and give it to them, or has nearly gained something and get them the rest of the way there. They are currently poor and don't have whatever this vitally valuable and important thing is to them. And it doesn't have to be money, but often can be. It could also be like access rights to a mine, or the availability of particular hunting grounds. I mean, take your pick, anything like that. So Rags to Riches is one version of the storyline, and the other is also Riches to Rags. So it might be that this is somebody, if you want to invert the storyline, the way this goes, it could be that a PC approaches the characters and already has wealth and is looking to get rid of it, and they can't. And it's just for your own freedom and creativity to figure out what that might look like. The quest, number 3, is your standard sort of hero character is given a grand, almost epic scale thing they need to accomplish. Now, depending on the tier of the game you're playing in, you can change that around for what that quest might look like. However, this is the one that's more like Frodo getting rid of the ring in Lord of the Rings. Take your pick. This is probably the most overt and easy one to get a hold of. However, it's slightly distinct from Voyage and Return. Voyage and Return has far more to do with the actual transit out and back than the quest might. On the quest, the important detail is the end point you're getting to. For Voyage and Return, far more is about what's happening and what changes for the characters in the journey out to a place and the journey back from a place. Following that, and sort of related to it, is this rebirth storyline, where it might be that you have a character, as overt as a character who wants to become a lich, where they're almost literally being reborn, to a character who wants to dramatically change their life, and maybe they're getting smuggled out of the city. You take your pick. Anything of the sort, from a sort of hard difference where they are themselves physically, ontologically changed, to a softer version where they're becoming a new person while their body isn't changed, but maybe they're going to a new location, finding a new social group. Take your pick. Comedies are your kind of most lighthearted one, where there's going to be some sort of funny, ridiculous thing that happens, but the character kind of returns to where they were before. And in that respect, it's kind of like a Voyage and Return story, but not as physical. Not about the transit of you going somewhere and back, but more about the development that happens for the character themselves. And lastly, a tragedy, where they might struggle against all odds to create something or avoid something, and that thing happens or doesn't happen anyway. So 7 different kinds of story that are the start for me getting my creative juices flowing. And this is where we get to the part that I really like. And that is the structure I have at play. So this is a structure that I use for 2 lines on a notepad or a digital format like this to come up with everything I need to know to start a quest what kind of quest I think it is in its broad form, where I think it's going to end up, or where I might sort of gently put it to, and the reward for whatever that is. And the most crucial part, the accelerants. So this is way at the bottom here. So I come up with all of these details that fit onto a single set of lines, and it gives me everything I need to know to create the skeletons of a subplot, but not needing to go all the way through with fleshing it out. And I can make a whole bunch of these pretty quickly, seed them into a game, and then see what picks up. If none of them do, then I have these things for later. Now, pretty straightforward stuff. The question initiator is whoever's going to meet the characters first. And in parenthesis, I add what kind of story I think it's going to be of the ones listed above. Great. The final scene is meant to be more this bit of like some short phrase for what I think would be the best way for this to end. But may end that way, but might not. And it's just it's sort of if you have a crystallizing great moment you're thinking of, I put that there. And whatever the loot might be, if I'm looking for specific loot to come from it that might be tied into the story or not. I think easily the most interesting part of this structure is the second line, the accelerants. And they are precisely that. You add details in so that you see the story the first time. The quest initiator comes to them and says, I need your help with X. And the players don't pick it up. Okay. And then, a session or two later, if you feel the need to bump that back on their attention, you put the first accelerant in. You say, oh, by the way, this has happened. There's news that this person has gone off and decided to try and slay the big bad monster by themselves. Okay, right. Maybe the players don't pick it up. So you leave it set for another session. And then you bring the second accelerant. And by their very nature, as accelerants, they get bigger and more aggressive and more terrifying to have to deal with. And you do 3 of these. And if by 3 times the players decide they don't want to do anything with it, just leave it lie. That's fine. But all I've done is come up with 2 lines, so I'm not too worried about making a whole big story and it maybe not come into fruition. I have enough to get things started, and if the players pick it up, then I can start to build out more of it as it goes. So I'll give you a story about an accelerant. We were playing a West Marches style game a couple of years ago, and there was a quest about going to the Fens. And the storyboard, the quest board in the middle of town, initially said, the Fens are looking for help with this thing. Didn't get it. We kept ignoring it, and the language got more and more aggressive until finally, scrawled in big letters, our GM wrote, the Fens scream for blood. They will have it. And as all good D&D parties go, we promptly turned the other direction and left it. And it's now a joke that we have. It's now a joke in our D&D group of, the Fens scream for blood and they will have it. And it's almost always an in-joke for us really going to do a thing and then saying, no, let's not. Let's just go the opposite direction. Okay. So 7 different kinds of stories. The structure for what it looks like. Now, let me show you a little bit of how I've written out a couple of these. So I spent some time working on these, and I have a handful of them, right? Quite a few all throughout. And this is keeping a note, different kinds of stories that I have at the top, as well as the structure that exists for this. And then I just come up with a bunch of these prompts. So I'll take you through maybe 1 or 2 of them. We'll use the first one, Daveneth Who Laughs. And yes, that is a reference to the Batman comics. Daveneth, otherwise known as Dave, is a comedy kobold character who showed up in a Curse of Strahd campaign I was running, who I overcharged him and put like way, way high tier stats onto this guy. And he kicked the players' butts in his first instance and then disappeared. And they all were left like, who on earth is this Dave? And he had a terrible stench that meant they had to like roll a constitution save or take disadvantage on the attack. Like he was just a wandering debuff DPS machine. So I worked him in to Portcullis. He's now Daveneth, although they only know him as Dave. And this is a rebirth story for him. And so what they need to do, or what the final point of this is that they get a staff and they return it to him, and it lifts a curse that changes him. He's reborn from Dave the Kobold to Daveneth. Okay, and I put a little note, maybe Dave is posh, because I think it'd be funny just to change the accent so dramatically from what he was before. So we need some accelerants. First one, they hear news that a staff has gone missing from a local museum. Maybe they find out a little more about it. Maybe they leave it lie. Okay, fine. Next accelerant, Dave shows up, kicks their tail, leaves suddenly again. They have no idea who this guy is. They're worried he's going to come after them again. Third accelerant, some sort of time travel vision hiccup happens that puts them back in the moment where they see who Dave could be. And they know who the Dave was that they fought. So this is again trying to push them towards trying to find this staff. And then finally, if you really need it, you have a divine intervention of a god who steps in and says, right, it is time for Dave. And maybe they even just force them to go, teleport them to fight Dave directly or to otherwise try and heal Dave. Take your pick. And then finally, what happens, this sort of end moment, is that the moment the staff is returned to Dave, he is transformed and reborn. Nice, straightforward. 2 lines, gives me everything I need to know. If they pick it up, great. If they don't pick it up, that's okay too. Because you can come up with quite a few of these quite quickly. So for my second example, I think we'll go with, oh yeah, I really like this one. So there's this one to do with many tearing claws. Again, a rebirth storyline, where the end point is that he convinces his tribe finally to meet and to say farewell. So his rebirth is that he wants to leave his tribe. So it could be something that starts as simply as the tribe finds the party, and maybe they already allude to the fact that many tearing claws is no longer with them. Okay. Or he's there and you witness a fight between him and his tribe, and the party thinks, oh right, there's some drama here. Leave it lie. And then they catch wind later that many tearing claws has died, and that something dramatic has happened. You don't know what. You can fill that in as you feel is important. But maybe it turns out then, after they hear that he is dead, he isn't. And he shows up a third time to explain to the party directly that he needs their help in order to finally leave the tribe. So, you find a way to do it. And in this version of the storyline, it might be that he shows up and he is bleached, which is one of the sort of, it's effectively the exit ritual for any of the tribes in Kurar, for what it means to ritualistically separate a member from their tribe so that functionally they no longer exist, which is not something they would want to do by any stretch, but is their version of capital punishment without outright killing people. That then could be its own conclusion. Him getting bleached could be the thing that ends it. It's up to you. So there's 2. This is running longer than I meant it to, but there are 2 different ways to take this structure at play and to create subplots for your game. So these are, in this instance, 7 different storylines you could use, and then the structure, which is really the meat of this video. The structure that allows you to create a 2-line subplot that then does everything you need to just give you a little bit of investment to then know what your players might want to pick up or not. That's my video for today. Thanks very much. Like, subscribe, and potentially you'll get updates about any other videos I put out in the next while. Thanks. Bye.